Climbing's an adventure sport where you start at the bottom of a route and hope to get to the top using your hands and feet to do so. It's always fun getting outside with friends, spending sometimes nights camping at the bottom of the cliffs, just getting outside and exploring stuff. The best thing is usually, finding new parts of routes, getting onto new parts, completing routes after weeks or months of trying.
So Malta is quite fortunate in terms of geology because it's, as everyone knows, it's made out of rock basically. So yeah, wherever you go, there's bare rock, which potentially is somewhere people can climb on. In Malta, people tend to climb mostly on either the sea cliffs or inland valleys and ridges. The sea cliffs can be very, very exciting because, especially for people coming from Northern Europe, for example, who might not be used to climbing above the sea, because they provide a very specific ambience and other challenges approaching from the top and this sort of thing. But then there are the valley routes, like with Barbu and with Irda, which often have very good rock, and a good number of routes have been put up there. And you've got ridges like at Victoria Lines, where we're at the moment, where yeah, also good rock is offered. All this means that there's a lot of potential, and today, I think we probably have about 1,700 routes on the island, maybe more, between trad, that means without bolts, and sport routes, which are equipped with bolts, which is a pretty good stock of climbs, for anyone. And the great thing about Malta, which attracts a lot of people to come here, is that the crags are not far away from each other or from accommodation. They're always within 15-20 minutes drive mostly, so they're very accessible. So you can go climbing and have a great time in the morning and do other activities in the afternoon. So that's a really good package. Plus we can also climb in Malta the whole year round, which is something fantastic, which again you can't do in too many places in the world.
I've been traveling those last 15 years and climbed pretty much not all around the world, but in many different locations. What is striking for me in Malta is that all the locations are really close to each other, and you really never drive far to get to a climbing place, and that's really exciting, because back home, you need to drive a lot and walk a lot. When here, everything is really close by and it's really cool.
Malta is special from the climbing point of view. Why is it special? Because there are so many crags which are near to each other and near also by walking distance, that you can change crag in the same day. You can go to one crag in the morning, one in the afternoon, and even if you want, you can try a third crag in the evening.
Concernant la grimpe à Malte, il y a énormément à dire, que ce soit sur les différents types de sites d'escalade, mais tout autant la communauté de grimpeurs qui vit à Malte est très accueillante. J'ai eu la chance de rencontrer par hasard des gens ici, et en fait cette communauté est à la fois faite de bons grimpeurs, mais aussi de gens très ouverts, très gentils, qui vous font découvrir les lieux et partagent le plaisir de grimper avec tout le monde. Donc Malte, c'est un petit jardin secret, bien caché, que que peu de gens connaissent en dehors de Malte. C'est pas comme la Grèce, Kalymnos, où c'est réputé. Ici, peu de gens connaissent, et pourtant il y a beaucoup à faire.
My name is Simon Alden, and I'm president of the Malta Climbing Club. I set up the club in 2010. I decided there was really need for a climbing club. There was one already at the time, but I felt I could bring something else to the sport. The main aim of the club was basically to promote the sport of climbing in the Maltese Islands in a way which was affordable to people. We kind of wanted to bring it to the masses. What we do mostly are activities, outdoors and indoors, to basically introduce climbing to people who have never tried it before and who have heard about it and would like to try it, and create a kind of social vibe around it and create a climbing community in Maltese Islands, which we didn't really have at the time. We have weekly climbing meets. Basically anyone can join in, they don't pay much money, the club provides all the equipment, and we go to different places in the Maltese Islands every Wednesday in the evening. And there are experienced climbers and beginners as well, and we just make sure people can try the sport in a very safe manner. We're also lucky enough to get the use of the Sliema climbing wall, which is behind me. I used to be a Sliema scout myself back in the 70s and 80s. I joined the Cubs when I was 7, and I was a venture scout up to the age of 21, but then basically climbing took over my life. But through that connection, I got to know that the Sliema Scouts had invested in a wall which was incomplete, and I was fortunate enough to step in and finish the wall and start offering basically sessions at an indoor climbing facility a couple of times a week. It's totally run on a voluntary basis, and for quite a good number of years this wall behind me has been the center of indoor climbing in Malta. There have been developments in the meantime, but we still have weekly sessions here, and also kids sessions. 6 years ago I realized that there was a generation gap, only people in their 20s were climbing, and maybe 30s, but we didn't have any kids coming into the sport, and I was being approached by parents of children who wanted to try climbing. So together with other members of the committee, we set up what we call Kids Zone, and we've been offering kids climbing sessions, coaching sessions every week for the past 6 years. Kids Zone has been very successful, and we are oversubscribed. Every single term we've ever had has been full. We've been teaching kids from the age of like 6 up to 13 and 14 now, and gradually we're filling up the whole young years of little children and teenage, and we want to grow a generation of teenage kids basically, who are the future of climbing in Malta ultimately. They are the guys who will be climbing the 9A grades and the really extreme grades of climbing in the future, I think. So it's important that we cultivate this generation and give them opportunities to grow in the sport. I trained as a coach myself in the UK to be able to give as much as possible back to the kids in terms of technique and exercises, but at the same time, since they're children, we try to make them fun and play games and this sort of thing as well. Apart from these activities, we also help develop the infrastructure of climbing in Malta. Sport climbing is dependent on having routes in different areas which are bolted. Bolting requires a lot of work, a lot of money, takes a lot of time. We do it on a voluntary basis, and we've developed a number of climbing sectors in the Maltese Islands. We also do maintenance on routes where anchors might not be up to standard, or there might be a problem with a loose bolt or a damaged bolt. We will change them and replace them. But personally, I find the most exciting thing being the development of new climbing areas, because it involves exploration, interpretation of the rock to find the right lines on the rock which will make good routes, and then the satisfaction of seeing people climb the routes afterwards and enjoying our creation, so to speak.
We are in Arlapsi. This is a wonderful location for hikers, for picnickers, and for climbers. There's quite a few rocks. There's quite a few caves, which makes the climbing interesting because it combines slab climbing sometimes on the grey faces and overhangs or even roof climbing inside the caves. So we have twin caves behind me, and then there's several other caves, and then there's a whole new sector which is at the very end of this rock strip, which is called Corona Wall and Quarry Steps. I love climbing in this location because since I came to Malta, I started to learn how to climb on overhangs and roofs, and this is a fantastic place. And there are great routes too. You know, some of them are just spectacular. One of them, I have to say, I bolted it myself. It's called Er Capolavoro, which in Italian means the masterpiece. A few years ago, we were planning even to have a climbing festival and to hold it here in this area, in Arlapsi, because of the number of routes, the quality of the routes and of the rock, and the different grades which you can find here, from the super easy, like fourth grade, to 7B to 7C, and even to 8As for those who can do that. So, and now it's become even better because with the new extensions, with the new sectors that we have bolted recently, there's even more variety and even more chance and more fun for everyone.
So this is Crucifix Cave. We're at the limits of Nashar, on the way to Burmarrat. It's a very popular sports crag because it's made up of mainly mid-grade climbs. It's bolted, it's become one of the main bolted caves, and as said, is very popular with mid-grade climbers during most of the year. The climbing is mostly pumpy and overhanging climbing, however on really good positive holds and jugs. The climbing, as said here, ranges from 6A all the way to 6B, 6B plus, 6C and some 7As. As said, the cave and the sides of it are rather overhanging, and one thing is, the important thing to keep in mind is that it's important to be able to reach the anchors to then retrieve your gear. Otherwise, if one decides to bail mid-climb, unfortunately he'll just sort of like come vertically down, and there's no way to then retrieve whatever climb is left, whatever gear is left on the climb.
This is Mosta Valley. I came here, I was making the calculation right now, and I came here 9 years ago for the first time, and I was climbing in a sector which was already bolted. It's called Honey Buttress, with friends, and then I saw this crag here, I saw all the rock which is around, and I said, this is fantastic. So I started bolting routes, and when I came here, I think the whole valley had probably about 15 routes, 15, and now the whole valley has more than 100 routes. So I think I bolted probably 80 or 90 routes myself here in this sector called Katsarchis, in the one which is facing me called Chapel Buttress, over there in Oil Drum Cave, in the other sector which is called Scouts Buttress, round the corner in Eye in the Sky, and finally also a couple of new routes even in Honey Buttress. So I've been quite busy developing this area, and I'm happy to say that today it's become one of the better areas of Malta, one of the main focuses for climbing.
Climbing in Mosta Valley is fantastic. We have several sections, we call it crag, where we can climb. We have routes very easy, starting from 4C, and then we go all the way up, I understand, until some 7B, if I'm not mistaken, maybe something even harder. Several routes have been bolted. They're very nicely bolted, which is very nice. And we also have some trad routes, which make it a perfect place for all kind of climbers.
This is Latnia Cave. It's in Melliha. We call it a cave, but it's basically a sinkhole, basically in the ground. This is one of my favorite locations in Malta because we have like long overhanging climbs which are basically almost like roofs, you know, so you're like hanging from the roofs. And obviously this is like a bit more advanced than technical climbing, so it's not the ideal place for beginners. As you can see, like, you know, there are like quick draws hanging from the walls. because we have like projects, where we take like months working on these projects, so we come here every time and we leave our gear behind so we can like perfect the moves till we can actually finish the route. One of the main challenges of this cave is like it's a very weather dependent. So basically we have to wait for the right winds to be in the correct conditions, Otherwise, when we come here and the wind is not it's not good conditions, basically we come here for nothing, because like the holes is so wet, like everything is so slippery. So this is like a challenge, like we're like in advance checking for the winds, looking for that northwest wind, and then, when the wind is perfect, we just come here,
We're standing at a very popular climbing site today called the Garbage Wall, which is kind of made up of two sectors. There's a cave called Blind Cave and Garbage Wall. Unfortunately, the name was given because here literally used to be a mass of garbage. It was a fly tipping area where you'd find pieces of cars, washing machines, boxes, and I remember myself standing in the middle of all this rubbish, belaying British climbers who'd come to climb here, so it was pretty terrible. Part of the club's function on the island is to try and keep places clean and to continue to develop new routes for other climbers to enjoy, so this was a case in point where a volunteer took care of kind of rediscovering the routes, cleaning them, and adding bolts made out of titanium, which are the best possible you can buy, in our opinion. And the club, got a bulldozer, got permission from the local council, and we had a big clean-up effort, and we totally cleared the area of all the rubbish. And now it's become one of the most popular places to go climbing in Victoria Lines because of the ease of access, the number of routes, the different types of routes, and the fact that it's no longer a garbage dump anymore.
It is a place that is really accessible. I mean, you drive and you walk about 1 minute, or you just park under the roots. So that's really, really nice. And it has a really wide range of difficulties, from pure beginners up to intermediate. So it can be a family place, it can be a friendly place, and anybody can climb here.
With Babu è una delle zone più famose a Malta, dove si può arrampicare nel sud dell'isola. È una valle lunga circa 1 chilometro, molto eclettica e versatile, parte dall'entroterra, dal centro del villaggio di Zurich, per arrivare poi sfociare nel mare, dove forma una sorta di piscina naturale. Qui tendenzialmente la gente ci viene per fare passeggiate, per fare picnic, per campeggiare. Per quanto riguarda invece l'arrampicata, questa valle offre, in uno spazio molto concentrato e ridotto, una vastissima possibilità per gli arrampicatori. Si può fare trad, si possono fare vie di più tiri, multipitch, semplici, spittati moderni, e si può invece fare dei monotiri attrezzati moderni. Ce n'è per tutti i gusti, per tutte le capacità, infatti abbiamo sia le placche appoggiate, sia i muri verticali di dita, sia gli strapiombi o i tetti molto severi e impegnativi, duri. Si va da quinti gradi semplici fino a tutta la gamba dei sesti e dei settimi. Attualmente ci sono 2 8A, questo è il livello massimo che offre With Babu. Per me l'arrampicata non è solo uno sport, non è una semplice passione, è un vero e proprio stile di vita, è adrenalina pura, ma anche capacità di capire cosa si può fare, come fare le cose giuste al momento giusto.
It's an exhilarating discipline. It's more, as we say, it's more like a way of life than anything else. It's not just a sport. When you're rock climbing, you connect with nature and you've got to engage yourself in movement. You have to be psychologically present, and it's a really complete approach as per sport and as per life.
I love rock climbing. It's a very big part of my life. I've been climbing for a very long time, and I think, you know, it's a very good sport. Like you're working out all your body, but also, you know, we're a very socializing group. Like, you know, we hang out together, we go climb together, then we go for a drink together, and we're a very welcoming group. Like, you know, we're always welcoming new people, and you know, if people want to climb it, there are like climbing clubs where people can go and try it for the first time. There are also like different climbing gyms where people can go and try it inside, bouldering gyms in a more comfortable environment, you know, where they feel safer.
I think there's a misconception. People think that rock climbing is a daredevil sport and it's very dangerous, and this is not true. Rock climbing, of course, if done with the right procedures and with the right training, is one of the safest sports you can find. In fact, it's one that has the least incidence of accidents and of injuries.